Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 6-month novel mini-series, and today we'll be talking about story structure, so let's get to it. So basically the story structure is the skeleton of the entire story. You really need a good story structure in order to, tell the story. If you have all these random ideas floating about, it's like, hey, that's cool, hey, that's cool, hey, that's cool, but they can't be linked together, it's not gonna make a good story. This is something that I struggled with my first novel until I realized, like, oh, I've been going all over everywhere, so let's take a step back or a few steps and actually look at this. And when I made my story structure, it was actually way better and it was way easier to write. And as you can tell from the series, this is a lot of what a plotter does and not what a pantser does. If you don't know those words, a plotter is someone who, of course, plots out or outlines their story before they start. And a pantser is someone who just goes right into writing, They're like, oh, let's see where this takes us. It's kind of like what people of fan fiction do. They just go in and all that. They don't really have a plot. It's not necessarily bad, I'm not trying to say, oh, well, yours is as terrible as the fan fiction. No, I'm not saying that, I promise. I'm in between a lot, because I have this idea. I'm like, hey, let's see where this takes us, and I write it out. I'm like, oh yeah, that works. No, that doesn't. No. Anyways, the Novel Factory has it divided out into 3 acts, which is pretty standard for novels and even movies these days. And on the Novel Factory, it actually divides up the 3-act structure into little tinier parts. And after reading those parts, it really reminded me of the hero's journey. And if you don't know what the hero's journey is, it basically comes from this man named Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces. I actually haven't read this entire book. I did borrow the CD audio version of it because I'm very, very busy and I thought this would help me. I haven't started it yet, of course, like I said. I've seen a lot of people describe it, and it actually helped me. A basic version of it helped me for loading life. It's really nice. I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know, like, in-depth versions, because the parts that I've learned from a couple videos, which some of them are linked down below, is that, it's basically, it starts out with the protagonist, right? You have your protagonist and their ordinary life, basically what happens, just every single day. And then you have a call to action, which is like, hey, come to this other world, right? And then a couple of things might happen, but you have them entering that other world. And that right there, before they enter that other world, is Act 1. And then you have Act 2, the middle, which is where they meet their mentor, someone who is able to teach them or give them something to help them on their journey. And then there are challenges they have to face. And if you go on betternovelproject.com, she goes into a lot of detail about how Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, and Twilight have about 15 to 20 challenges for the entire book, which, of course includes the climax. It's more than just the first challenge, which is what you have on the Novel Factory. Under Act 2, they only have first challenge. And then after that, they have, final conflict. Technically, the temptation and the dark moment can count towards challenges, but, they never specifically say it. Not that it's a bad thing that they don't, but, if you want to go into more depth, you have to expand on that. And then, of course, after a couple of challenges, there'll be one that will tempt them. And this is like an opt-out. This is, Jesus in the garden saying, lift this burden off of me. It's your protagonist saying, well, if I can do it a different way, maybe I won't have to fight the evil villain. Maybe I can save my energy. Maybe I don't have to do this or sacrifice anything. I could just do this alternative. And of course, a lot of times, if you want a really good story, either the temptation will be too good to be true, so it'll be like an evil villain saying, ha ha ha, I tricked you, ha, or it'll be destroyed somehow, their path towards the temptation will be cut off by the evil villain, or maybe, you know, something else will happen, but the temptation won't work. And that's when you get into the dark moment. And the dark moment is that place where they're like, oh my god, I don't think I can survive, or oh my gosh, you know, I don't think I can do this alone. And then that's when they usually get a treasure. And the treasure is, it can be an object, it can be a person saving them, it can be a revelation. And that basically leads into Act 3. You know, the treasure is the one that gets them out of that dark moment enough to face the biggest challenge of their life, which is the final conflict. It's what they've been working up towards all this time, and then boom, bang, bum. And then what happens to your protagonist? Do they die off? Do they survive? You know, do they make friends with the villain? What happens? And then the last bit is returning home. It's getting back to that first place where you see them and how things have changed within them to see it change within their society, you know. If they fought a revolution and won, how does that society change? Or if they fought with something within themselves, how do they change? Or if they're dead, how does the world change without them, you know? Does it end up the same decimal place, or does something good come out of their sacrifice? And when I was working on Loading Life, I discovered that not all of these parts of the hero's journey will actually be in your own journey. It's not a structure. It's not something you have to base everything off of. It's more like, here are things that should happen, like, of course, the beginning and the end. And then here are things that you should consider happening. Like all the challenges, like the temptation and all that. So, right now I'm writing mine, and I'm having a little bit trouble, especially when it comes to Kai. She is, I don't know, she's a teenager, man. She's very difficult. But with Lavanya, who is definitely 25 and nothing else, and the sexy vampire dude who still does not have a name and does not have necessarily age right now, he's just really old. Anyways, their story skeletons, their story structures are more fleshed out right now because I kind of know more about them. Kai being a teenager, I don't know, like, I was a teenager. It hasn't been that long since, but, you know, she's dealing with something I haven't necessarily dealt with, which is shame from her family. I don't know if her family put that shame on her. I don't know if she put that shame on herself, but because of that, I have no clue. So I'm still working towards that. One of the things I can show you is, let's go with Lavanya's thing. So you have the first step, the regular world. And with Lavanya is, you know, she's working with the Hunters Guild because she's friends with Uncle, who is another character. And she works with Kai to watch over her, right? Basic, simple thing, blah, 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 blah. But then you have the call to action. And Lavanya's call to action is when she and Kai are called on a mission in order to get a weak vampire for someone who, you know, wants to deal with him and all that. And then crossing the threshold into that strange world, or into the different world, or whatever you want to call it, is when she meets this sexy vampire dude at the party that they're going to find that one weak vampire, and he almost kills her. So I'm still working on that. You know, that's basically what I'm working on. If you want to see really good examples, the Novel Factory does have them, and I like the stories they pick, because it's not just books, but it's also movies and all that people are used to. And, you know, they have it in a table, which is how I did mine. You know, they have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone. They have Star Wars, The Matrix, and The Lion King. And, of course, you have your introduction and call to action and all of that. But by reading it, you know, you see that it's just a few words or just a sentence. And it's not necessarily fleshed out. It has meat, but not a lot of it. So this part in working towards writing my story within 6 months doesn't have to be fully done. That's kind of what I'm getting from it. And I don't think I would want it fully done. I would still want to experiment with some parts and all of that. So, yeah. So that's what I'm working on, and I hope you all enjoyed this episode. And next week, we're going over character basics. So I hope to see you all then, and see you later, alligators. Bye-bye! you don't know what the hero's journey, it actually comes from,